Okay. So we have an attendee, Kelsey Louie. I'm going to promote you to panelist. Sorry about that. I forgot that I had to start the meeting. All right, so we will start with, I don't see David Ludvigson of God's Love We Deliver. So, hi Kelsey, you're muted.
Hello.
Hi, I think what we're going to do is, what time is it? It's 6:33. I'm gonna wait 2 minutes and then we'll start this. Our agenda has God's Love starting, but if David is a little bit late, we'll start with Kelsey.
Hi, Ivy.
Hi there.
Oh, there are now 4 attendees. Let's see the attendees. So David, there we go. Okay, so David Ludvigson is here. And I'm gonna write that Carter is here. And actually, I think what we'll do is start. Did I promote you, David Ludvigson? Yes. You declined to be promoted as a panelist. David, you're muted. I'm trying to promote you, David Ludvigson, to panelist so that you can start our meeting off. But it says that you've declined. I don't know, do you want to log back in, log out and log in? I'm gonna ask you to unmute. I'm going to promote you to
person. Yes, that's great that you're here. I'm Keen Burger, member of the board. But I'm delighted. What brings you to this meeting? You want to wonder what's going on?
I think our goal, correct me if I'm wrong, Rand, is we would love to possibly request a separate meeting, especially to talk about St. Luke's Church their planned mission bills. We just have some concerns about it being in such close proximity to 3 elementary schools and right across from the PATH train.
We'll discuss that and you can ask your questions as well.
Yeah.
All right, David Ludvigson, if you can hear me, I am trying to promote you to panelist. It continues to say that you decline it. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to start the meeting. Hey, Mark, if someone declines to be promoted as a panelist, should they log out and log back in?
No, that means that they received your request and so far don't want to be on camera.
Okay, so David, you have declined my very kind request to join as a panelist, so I am going to put you second on the agenda. So there. And we're going to start with Kelsey Louie, who is here and agreed to be a panelist. So let's start the meeting. Hi, everybody. This is welcome to the June meeting of the Human Services Committee of Community Board 2. We will do introductions in a minute. I will introduce first our agenda. We have 3 items on our agenda. We are going to hear from God's Love We Deliver, which has a base in our district and, as you probably well know, serves the entire city and probably beyond. We're going to hear from The Door. The Door also is located in our district and serves a much broader population than just our community. Both God's Love and The Door have come to see us before. We are also going to meet with St. Luke in the Fields, Mother Carol and Stacy, because they do outreach, that St. Luke's does outreach in human services, and we've never met with you guys. So we're interested in meeting with you. So you are a new guest for us. A couple of things, we'll do introductions. I'll let you know we don't have quorum tonight, which means some parliamentary thing. It's not an official meeting, but it doesn't really matter because we weren't planning on having a resolution tonight. If we wanted to have a resolution, we can write one and submit it to our full board, and they would vote on it. It wouldn't get a pre-vote from the committee. Wait, what else was I going to say? We're going to try to keep this meeting short, despite the fact that I'm still talking, because we all want to go watch the debate. So the other reason I should introduce this, the reason that we want to meet with these three organizations, and especially the first two with whom we've met before, is that one of the responsibilities of the community boards is every fall we submit to the city a list of budget priority requests, and we write a narrative. I like your dog, Ivy. Oh my God, how cute is that? We write a narrative that describes our district and our needs. So it's important for us to be stay astride of everything that everybody is doing in our district. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to a little more about Santa Cruz. Okay, so
The other thing you should say is that you write very good minutes of this meeting, and they are.
we will write a report. We will write a detailed report of this meeting. So afterwards,
So it will
even though
be
it's not a
archived.
resolution. Yes, it will be archived, and anyone who wasn't able to attend this meeting can read the report, which will have most of the meeting in it. Okay, introductions. I'm Susanna Aaron. I am the chair.
I'm Keen Berger, I'm a member.
Ivy, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ivy Kwan. I'm also part of CB2 and in the arts and culture. Nice to see everybody.
Committee. We're missing one of our committee members, Ritu Chatri, who expects to be here tonight, and then a few of our committee members are not here tonight. So, all right, we're going to start with Kelsey. Kelsey, what I'd love to know from you guys, did you want to do a presentation or shall we just have a conversation? I'm confusing my various guests.
Mentioned that I should just maybe give a report, an update report based on what you put out last time we met. Great.
So we issued a report. We met with the door last when Kelsey was pretty new. In November of 2021, we wrote a report up from that. And so bring us up to date.
Sure. Whoever said that you take good minutes, or whoever wrote these, I can't imagine I said all these things being so new. So it's very thorough. Wonderful job. Most of the things are the same in terms of what we do and who we serve. However, there have been some updates. What I would say is probably the most significant update and the most emerging update is a shifting in, or rather, the influx of new New Yorkers that have shown up at the door. And it has drastically changed the percentages of our demographics, and it continues to change. So for example, we are still calculating this, but we know that we've seen in FY24 alone, we've seen at least 1,500, and we think it's more, 1,500 new New Yorkers show up to our doorsteps. And the reason why I say we have the number 1,500 and we believe it's more is because as new New Yorkers were showing up, especially if they didn't speak English, we didn't have the capacity to kind of do data tracking on them. And so we did the best we could to serve them. And so we do think there are several months where we didn't keep the best records. And so, but of the records that we do have, at least just over 1,500 alone, we're seeing hundreds a month. And however, we're not able to serve all of them effectively. And the number one reason is because of language barriers. And, we thought we were pretty good in terms of our language access. For example, our entire legal team, we have 25 lawyers and additional 25 support staff, whether they're social workers, paralegals, or administrative staff. So about a 50-person legal team. Everyone on that team is at least bilingual. However, we're seeing, and when I say bilingual, or trilingual, it's English, French, and Spanish. We are seeing an influx of people who speak languages like Creole, Pular, Wolof, African dialects that sometimes the translation services aren't even represented. And so we've resorted to two things for now. One is often they come in groups, whether it's a group of friends or peers or community members. We will try to find the one who speaks English the best and use that. And that is not a great way to provide services. However, it's effective in kind of getting basic needs. And the other thing we did is we now have a kind of a picture book of things like, for example, like a medical center, food, housing. And so at least they can point to what they need. And then even then, we are providing basic services. We're not doing therapy. We're not doing any type of counseling or benefits, which they're not, they're not eligible for many benefits anyway. But so we continue to work with our government partners and our private foundations to help with support. Trinity Church Wall Street gave us a small grant to support this work, but it's still not enough. From what I understand, among our peer organizations, even outside of CB2, they're facing the same thing. And although I do think what ends up happening is when we provide somebody a little bit of help, then word of mouth travels and then we get more. And then we're certainly not able to manage that capacity. So that's kind of the biggest emerging change that has happened. And we're still.
Yeah, I have some questions about that. And because it's a small group tonight, I'm going to invite members of our committee to just raise your hands and ask questions when you want to. We won't take questions from the public yet. And I also realized I didn't ask you to introduce yourself. And even though you have been here before and we know your name, I think for the purposes of record keeping, it would be good to hear your introduction. And then I have some questions about this population. So first introduce yourself and then I'll start.
Sure. I am Kelsey Louie. I'm the proud CEO of the Door and Broome Street Academy, our charter high school. And I've been in this role tomorrow will be my 3rd-year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
So my first question was, do you attribute this new population to the overall, what we've been calling the migrant crisis in New York
Absolutely.
City?
Absolutely, yes.
And the people are coming to you, are they still within your age group? I mean, you don't generally serve adults.
Yeah, so that gets a little tricky. I would say generally they are. However, we in order to kind of just access kind of our basic service, our emergency services, we're not that strict on 24. However, if they don't have ID, we let them in for emergency services. And a lot of these, what we're learning is a lot of these new New Yorkers are being cautious around what they say to us. So we don't always know. And for another example is, I think a question is, are these unaccompanied minors or do they have families? And we think that they're telling us what they think we want to hear. Like, will they receive services if they have parents or if they don't have parents? And because we can, we see hesitation and, it could be language barrier, but we also see them kind of thinking about what they should be answering. But yeah, so we have tried, we are doing what we can to keep it to under 24 and under, but it's been difficult.
And when you say emergency services or basic services, the terms that you've been using in this conversation, what do you mean by those?
Food, clothing, and shower facilities.
And shower facilities. I see. Okay. Not legal.
No.
Okay. No, that's all right. We have a recent arrival. This is Ritu Chatri on our committee. Hello. And Ritu, we are just talking to Kelsey Louie of the Door. I think the question would be, for the purpose of the meeting, well, first of all, is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of updates?
Sure, yeah. We just finished our strategic plan, which hasn't been made public yet, but and I can tell you it has 4. So we went through a very typical strategic planning process with consultants, and it took many months. We got input from our community members, staff, board members, external people, and there are 4 goals, 3 to 5-year goals. The first is to continue to strengthen our program model to ensure we're meeting the needs of our community. Something I just spoke about. And I understand, I realized I actually hinted at that as kind of part of what I wanted to do 2.5 years ago. And what that means for us today is really leaning into the mental health crisis among youth and housing. And really expanding our housing options and continuing to innovate in our workforce services.
Development.
The second goal is to increase our profile as a trusted thought leader and thought partner to the community and the field of youth services. The third is to look internally because given post-COVID or post-pandemic, post the realization of race-based violence and the impact that both have had, not just on the people that we serve, but our own workforce and the new generation and everything that has changed, we want to intentionally look at how we can serve our staff so that we can be an employer of choice or continue to be an employer of choice. And the last one is long-term financial sustainability. Really, probably the thing that's most prominent in our strategic plan is our focus on the youth mental health crisis. I think we mentioned 2.5 years ago that we applied for an Article 31 mental health license to expand our mental health services. So what that will do is having a mental health clinic will allow us to not only expand in terms of volume, because it's basically, it's a fee-for-service model. So if we have we can meet the demand as long as we can hire people. And so we can grow as large as we need to. But we can also expand the breadth of mental health services we can provide. We are in the final stages. We're just finishing up a few compliance paperwork issues, and we should be up and running very soon. However, what I just mentioned is we will be limited by the lack of culturally competent social workers, especially people from the people of color and of the LGBTQ community. And so a very unique program that we're doing to solve that problem is we are partnering with NYU to provide 15 staff members an MSW. Really quickly, if an MSW at NYU costs $110,000, and you need, if you're working full time, you have to do your 35-hour job and then a 21-hour internship. So oftentimes getting an MSW is either cost prohibitive or time prohibitive or both. What this program does is going to allow 15 staff people at the door to get their MSW, one, for only $10,000.
Wow.
And if they're a union member, the union will cover it. We have agreed that we would allow people to do this work within 35 hours, their job and their internship within 35 hours. And all classes will either be online or at the door. And
wow, this is brilliant. I mean, we've been hearing from service provider after service provider that one of the big challenges is finding social workers. And everyone has talked about trying to build a pipeline.
Yes.
Is there a lot of appetite at NYU for this? I mean, do you think this is something that would be, I'm thinking beyond you guys, I'm thinking.
Yes, so I brought this to NYU. They love the idea. We're doing this starting September. We already selected the 15 people. We're starting September. And, this is made possible by significant funding from, this isn't public information yet, but it's not confidential.
Yeah, you're at a public meeting, so.
So you'll hear soon where it's coming from, but two of our funders have contributed large amounts of money to support this. We're getting a small discount from NYU, but it's made possible by some support from our private funders.
Wow, that's great. And in terms of the language challenges, have you been thinking about how to address that? Maybe NYU's language programs.
Yeah. So we've thought about, we're seeking volunteers. So we have a French professor who comes in twice a week. We're trying to pull from everywhere we can. We're thinking about providing stipends to young people who speak the languages that we need. We're using translation services. I'm hoping that with the Article 31 mental health clinic, we'll be able to bill for additional mental health services, and then therefore use the money that was paying for social workers to use that to pay for translators. And so just we're trying to be as creative as possible. We're speaking to all of our partners and they get it. However, we have yet to find someone who'll say, we'll give you X dollars to pay for a translator. So we're using, the best we can with technology.
Have you thought about using case managers for that?
Yes, yeah. So we've thought about that. The problem is we finding a case manager who can speak. We're not talking about languages like French and Spanish. We're talking about
Swahili,
very specific
Wolof,
African dialects. Yeah. So
two things I want to ask. You mentioned that you're seeing about 1,500 people. You saw 1,500 New Yorkers in fiscal year 24. How does that number compare to your general population? How much of an increase or change is that?
Yeah. So pre-pandemic, we saw about 11,000 young people each year. And I think in 2021, we were down to 7,500, and we realized that was for a number of reasons. One, people weren't connecting as long, the pandemic, and a whole host of reasons. People moved out of New York. And I think in 2022, we kind of got up to 8,000. And so now we're up to, we think we'll hit about 9,500 this year. And so, yeah. And this, people cycle in and cycle out. So,
right. So like 15, what is that? 15%? Yeah.
Roughly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing you said that your mental health program is, first of all, it's interesting because we met with Greenwich House and they too are expanding their mental health services. And you mentioned that those are fee for service. So are you licensed to get Medicaid reimbursement and that sort of thing, or?
So we are currently licensed to bill Medicaid through our Article 28 medical clinic. However, that limits the number of mental health services to either 30% of total services or 10,000, and we've reached that cap. So, which is why we're expanding to our Article 31 mental health clinic.
Great, thank you. Ivy has a question. Ivy, why don't you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think the items that you're partnering with NYU are amazing. Obviously, have you have a sense of like the kind of fundraising or finance that you need to bridge for this amount of people that are coming in? And then the other question I had is that, is there any models in the community that speak all this different language, whether they have anything within like the people that are already established here that they can help? Like in Canada, when I think in the 70s, a lot of people from Vietnam that I remember I have friends at this time, they're continuing the kind of work where they actually are host and they're partnered with organizations like yours. So what they do is like, obviously they bridge the language thing, the culture thing, they help with bridging a spectrum of things, like getting kids to school, like enrolled in schools, navigating like libraries, getting initial jobs. I don't know if like there's something like this here with all the different communities that are showing up.
Yeah. To answer your first question about the amount of fundraising that it would take, it's hard because what I think would happen is if we, let's say, fundraised the amount just to get translation services, what'll happen is more folks will come and more will stay, and we'll need to do more. So then the need will rise, which is what we want. I mean, if we can do it, great, and then we will. So it's hard to kind of say what to give you a number there. But I will say, but here's a good example. So, someone who doesn't, as an FQHC in our medical center, we're a federally qualified health center. We are, our mission and our mandate is to serve people regardless of the ability to pay. So a new New Yorker who shows up, who says that they need medical care and we're able to manage a medical visit, cannot pay for services. And so when that happens every so often, that's totally fine. But when that becomes 15% of your services, that means 15% of you're offering 15% of your services for free and not getting reimbursed for it. And it's going to have a long-term impact financially on what we do. And so for example, so FY24, we saw losses, or we're about to wrap up the end of the year. We are seeing losses in our medical center for this reason. Now, these are mission-based financial losses, not as opposed to, not doing well. And so we accept it. However, we're a nonprofit. We have to manage our bills. So we have to figure out a solution. So in terms of fundraising, so there are numbers tied to that, let's say, where we can say there's services there. Yeah, so it's significant. And then to answer your other question about that's a great thing to think about. If we can kind of, I think we're looking at who we can partner with, who speaks these languages. I know there are African services, and we're trying to figure out where there are professionals or adults even, not just professionals who
like
speak these
families have
languages.
been established that are not exactly in that, maybe it's like a couple of years have been that actually know all this barriers, because the Vietnamese organization that my friends are involved is that they have also learned, empowered by organizations like yours at the beginning as seed investments, where they learn how to apply for those services through the government to ease like the amount of cases, because it's just unattainable.
Yeah.
And the actual families from those cultures were able to move along the community.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. We've only been able, in terms of that, we've only been able to get to the point where we can kind of find the person who speaks English the best and work that way. But I think, that your idea is great.
Will you be open for me to connect to one of my friends in Canada that has basically grown up in this system and now runs those kind of like community based moving forward still, because they still do it.
Absolutely. 100%.
That'll be you'll love it. Right.
I want to try to be mindful of time because we all have to get to a debate. And I'd love to wrap this up, but I want to make sure, first of all, that anyone else has questions. If you from the public have questions, if anyone of the attendees will now open it up to the public. Anyone else have a question? I think everyone's here for St. Luke's. Anyone would like to ask a question of Kelsey?
Very impressive work.
Yeah, you guys are just terrific. And I think my ultimate question is, when we go to write our budget priority requests, can you please ask us what we should ask for you? I mean, they ask us for capital and they ask us for expense. You don't have to do that at this meeting. You can think about it, but when we sit down at the end of September and start thinking about the organizations that we want to give verbal support to and make asks for, I mean, we just would love to know how we can support you.
Right, with any specifics that.
Yeah, with any specifics, you need capital money to renovate the roof. I don't know, that kind of thing. So
100%, I will easily come up with a list.
You can send that directly to me. I'll share it with our committee, and we'll be having a conversation at the end of the summer.
Thank you so much.
So much, Kelsey. All right, we're going to move on. David, sorry that
Kelsey.
A second. We had a little technical
Hi, David.
difficulties.
Yes, technical difficulties.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and give us just a brief update. I mean, we all know you, but not everyone who comes to this meeting knows you. So some will be able to read the report from when you met with us, which was in November of 2022. So introduce yourself and introduce God's Love and take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me back. I'm David Ludwigson. I'm the president and CEO at God's Love We Deliver, and I have been with God's love, either on staff or as a volunteer for about 28 years, but I've only been the CEO for about 18 months. So, and it has been quite an eventful 18 months, really marked by incredible growth, like Kelsey has been describing. Since we met last time, when we delivered 3.7 million meals, this year we'll deliver 4.3 million, 650,000 more than last year, and we're projecting over 5 million meals for next year. So,
wow.
Yeah, the growth is exponential, and it's really because there's a couple of things driving it. One of the main things is just as people recognize how effective medically tailored meals are for sick people, and as the only medically tailored meal provider in the entire city, that's really driving growth. Something else that is not doing it yet, but it's going to in the very, very near future is the 1115 waiver that will allow the state of New York to use Medicaid funds to pay for medically tailored meals. And we're gearing up for that. And we had a 10-year plan to get to 10 million meals. I think we'll be there in about 3 years, which is great because what we do works. And like Kelsey was describing, the challenge then becomes how do we find the capacity to cook and package and deliver all of these meals. As you know,
yeah, well, first of all, I want to point out, congratulations on becoming the CEO, because when you came to visit us the last time, you were not yet the CEO. So congratulations on that. And when you met with us, I think you were opening a new facility outside of Manhattan, right? To get that capacity.
Sure. The first thing we did, which is I think when we all became acquainted, was take over the Northern Dispensary, which is overflowing. Our Michael Kors building in Soho is completely overflowing. So what we've done in the short term is we're actually renting space from City Harvest in Brooklyn, which is really kind of saving us right now and allowing us to grow. While we do two things, we're in the silent phase of a capital campaign for a more permanent solution, and we're looking for some kind of bridges to that permanent solution where we may take over 25 or 35,000 square feet somewhere for a period of 2 or 3 years, so we can continue to meet the need.
And that square footage is not administrative space. That's really cooking and packaging. I mean, right, because at the Northern Dispensary in our district, you're using that for administration.
That's right. And we will need additional desks, although that's easier solved with desk sharing and people working from home and that kind of thing. And you're right. So now where we're really feeling the pinch is, first of all, in our ability to freeze and store the meals, having space to pack the meals, and very soon we're going to be approaching capacity of being in the number of meals that we can cook out of the Michael Kors building. The good news with the 1115 waiver, although the details haven't been released yet, is we will be reimbursed for those meals, which is amazing because we would feed all those people for free. And there'll be money in there for infrastructure so that some of this brick and mortar that we need would be covered. Perhaps some of the personnel would be covered. Some of the delivery vans we need would be covered. And everything's just growing. We now have about 40 vans on the road every day. Those vans need drivers. Those vans need parking spots. We park over at the pier right now. The rate for those spots has gone increased by about 50% in the last 2 years. Congestion pricing is on hold. We thought, that was going to cost us a fair amount of money. We don't have to worry about that, at least in the near term. In CB2 last year, we grew about 9%. We delivered over 81,000 meals to people
within our district.
In your district, that's right. And something that's kind of interesting that I've noted about your district is the good news is our clients are getting older. You know, in the bad old days in the 80s, unfortunately, everybody died. Not the case anymore. About 75% of our clients in general are more than 60 years old. In Community Board 2, it's more like 92%. So for whatever reason, the clients we serve in your district tend to be older. The diseases are kind of the same.
Apartments. It's all those walk-up apartments.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
The way the diseases are spread are also a little bit different from normal in that the number of clients we have with HIV/AIDS in CB2 is about 3 times that our average across the city. About 30% of the meals that we deliver are still for people with HIV.
Has that always been the case? Has Community District 2 always been about 30%?
You know what? I don't know. And I'm not sure how far back our database would take us. And, you know, way back, of course, it was 100%. And then about 22 years ago, we expanded to serve people living with all life-altering illnesses. So now it's cardiovascular disease and cancer and Alzheimer's disease and, you know, you name it. We remain largely volunteer driven. We had 23,000 volunteers last year. Although our staff is growing with our temporary staff, we're now about 240 people.
Wow. And you don't have city or state contracts. This is all funded. I mean, you will begin to get Medicaid reimbursement, but up until now, everything is funded with some government grants, I think.
So right now, we remain largely privately funded. About 2/3 of our budget is from private fundraising. About 1/3 is from government, mainly the Ryan White Care Act, and then contracts we have with insurance companies. We call them healthcare partners. And what's happening there is just the insurance companies are starting to understand that they could pay us $20 a day, or they could pay $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 a day when their client goes to the hospital. And the research is so overwhelming. I'll just give you a couple of stats. When you're on a medically tailored meal program, the research shows you go to the emergency room 70% less often than somebody not on the program.
Wow.
It's pretty remarkable. If you do go to the emergency room, you're 50% less likely to be admitted. And if they do admit you, when they release you, you're 72% more likely to be released to your home rather than a nursing home. And this was a study that, you know, was a gold standard double-blind. It was published in the Journal of American Medical Association. And so people are starting to catch on, including the federal government. In fact, just today, the medically tailored meal bill, which God's Love wrote and sponsored with the Food is Medicine Coalition that we run, was unanimously approved in committee and is actually going to come to the floor for a vote. And what that bill will do is provide funding for the government to replicate our research at 10 VA hospitals around the country, with the goal being then that medically tailored meals would become a covered benefit under Medicare.
My God, it's unbelievable. Ivy, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. So, I'm not currently volunteering, but I was involved since '91, and also part of Ryan White when it first started funding it in '92. So, this is a question that I've had for many years. As you guys expanded, is like, is there any rediscussions about taking huge amount of resource back to the community, like churches and different places that already have kitchens? I mean, obviously it will have to be tailor adjusted, like for the freezers. I remember when you guys were doing this renovation, we had to move to the Pfizer manufacturing, which was very traumatic for positive people to be doing 3 years there. But I saw what the city could do. I mean, the city gave you guys a ton of money to retrofit that space and also supported the renovation. So I'm thinking maybe, sort of like what you're saying, there is concepts that 30 years ago, like the benefit of having proper meals, as we call prevention, in American culture was undigestible. But we come to finally to be able to even discuss like a very simple thing. So that in that same vein, is there not a situation that we can go back to facilities that actually have space and tax breaks and community, and then you'll have more community walking this food or driving this food?
Do you mean to like partner with somebody that had a kitchen that would help us make our meals?
No, like churches or communal spaces already have huge kitchens that use it only on the weekend.
Well,
And
if we knew of a space that we could use that had the type of equipment and storage, we have 100-gallon soup kettles, and I don't know if you've been in the new kitchen at the Michael Kors building. That's about 10,000 square feet. We would certainly be interested in that.
But what I'm saying is, like, instead of purchasing more real estate, that a sliver of that percentage of what you could retrofit per the need of God's love, like you did at the Pfizer building with state money or city money, is a fraction. You also have community that's willing to help you deliver. As you know, I think like when we deliver during Thanksgiving and Christmas, a lot of us would love to do it more often.
Yeah, well, we have like I mentioned, 23,000 volunteers. We welcome, all comers on the volunteer front. The issue for us is the growth that we're facing in the next couple of years, where again, I think we will probably double to 10 million meals within about 3, maybe 4 years. We're going to need, in order, I think, to manage that, we're going to need really large facilities. And, if for instance, if somebody had a couple of stoves and a freezer and they could do 1,000 meals.
Yeah, they could cut it.
We really have to think much, much bigger at this point.
Or does that mean that you would have to go back to the Pfizer building?
No, I don't think we would go back to the Pfizer building. We don't think that space is still available.
I have a question about congestion pricing. When we met with you the last time, you were concerned about the cost that would have. Do you think that it would catapult you out of this district?
No.
No. Okay.
For a couple of reasons. And we didn't really take a position either way on it. And we were prepared to live with it. It probably would have cost us a couple $100,000 that certainly we would prefer not to pay. We could feed sick people with that. But, our budget this year will be 55 million. So we could absorb something like that. But the other thing is, the Michael Kors building, we bought from the city, and there's so many restrictions on the deed that we'll never sell it. That will always be home base. Mm-hmm. And, we have such a great relationship with the Benders and the Gottlieb people. We expect that we'll also be at Northern Dispensary for, a long, long time.
So
we like that.
How many meals were we doing when it was called the Geffen, for example? Because a lot of the church's kitchen was approximately that size. I know we had some storage refrigeration by the time we pre-renovation. So what is that amount? If you had several of those locations in a community, I think that adds up, and it does not amount of taking buying new space.
Well, a couple of things. We're looking at buying space. We're also looking at leasing space. Buying in New York has become prohibitive. And things like office space is plentiful. We don't need office space. We need industrial space, and the market for industrial space is still very hot. We need loading docks, and we need many, many thousand square feet of freezers and refrigerators and that type of thing. So I hear what you're saying,
Well,
but
cafeteria ain't gonna work, right?
yeah, we believe in order to do this and do it right, we're really going to have to scale. We won't be able to have a couple 100,000 meals there and a couple 100,000 meals there. We're going to need a space where we're literally making millions of meals annually.
I'm gonna guess that there are huge economies of scale in
Yes.
being able to be as centralized as possible.
Not only managing all of that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
the biggest thing.
many years ago, before I got to God's Love, apparently there was an effort to open a second kitchen in the Bronx, and the issue became management. So, you know, whether you have 5 people working there or 500, you're going to need those levels of management, and you start to lose control. And that's, you know, one of the most important things for what we do is all of our clients are sick, their immune systems are compromised, and we have to know 100% exactly how the food is handled, that it's handled properly, it's kept at the right temperatures at all times, and that kind of thing.
And the new developments of like the city taking back, like, for example, parking lots that they're going to make into housing. Have you been like, is that in your preview about getting space like in the ground floor or the first 3 floors? For example, the police parking that is on, I guess, Center Street near Crosby. I believe that's in the list of being housing.
Yeah, we have talked to a lot of people. You know, we've talked to Eric and Sarah Hoylman and you know, Dan Goldman, you know, at all levels, city, state, federal. And I'm sure we have not talked to everybody. So if you know of any opportunities like that, we are all ears. We'd love to hear about it.
That's Mark Levine's initiative. And he has a list of all the buildings that they're taking back. They're either abandoned or they need to retrofit because, you know, they're parking cop cars and they decided that financially it's not workable either.
That's we will definitely check with
so that's Center,
Mark.
I believe Center near Crosby. Is that Crosby? Yeah.
I have a question, sort of, again, back to the purpose of our meeting with you is there any way that the community board can support the work of God's Love in terms of advocacy or budget requests? I mean, you're not contracted by the city, so obviously it's a different relationship. But if there's any way that we can advocate for you.
Yeah, well, a number of our city council people have with their discretionary money, they buy vans and things like that for God's Love. And, you know, we can always use more. So I think it's vans. We are going to have next year a request in front of the council for a large capital gift to help continue to push this effort forward, and would love to have, you know, a good word from the district on that. That will probably be $11 million.
And that won't be money that will get spent in our district, but we might be able to just at least vouch for the importance of your
How much is
role.
a van?
Vans are about $75,000.
That's a capital gift. That's a capital.
And you're right. It likely won't be in your district. I'm not aware of any space like that.
How about 11th Street between 5th and 6th? I'm just kidding. We have very expensive real estate in our district.
Yes, I mean it would sure be nice, but it's not likely.
Does anyone else have any questions of the attendees, of our guests in the room? I'm not seeing any. And David, is there anything that you would like to tell us that you haven't yet?
I don't think so. Just thanks for having us. And again, the Northern Dispensary, if you want to have this meeting there at any point, always happy to host, or if you need a space for something. They're using it as the welcome center for the opening of the Monument Visitor Center tomorrow, for instance, and we're always happy if we can to make it available to the community like that.
I would say, yeah, I would love to go see the kitchen at the Coles building.
Yes.
Maybe sometime you can let me go over there.
In community
Anytime.
board, we should also maybe think about, volunteering together.
Yeah, sure.
Corporations
That would be
go
great.
in.
We have
Corporations go
a
in.
we have a fantastic community space with a beautiful terrace on our 5th floor. If you all wanted to volunteer and then do your meeting afterwards or something up there, and we could have some refreshments for you, we'd be happy to do that.
Our district manager, whose task is to find meeting spaces for the community board, his ears just pricked up. Mark Diller, his ears just pricked up.
Don't treat us too well.
Yeah, exactly. Be careful what you offer.
Happy to host anytime.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you and Kelsey, both of you, for being here. We'll say goodnight to both of you, and we'll turn to Mother Caroline Stacy.
Very good. Thanks a lot. Bye, Kelsey.
Good night. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
So before you guys leave, I'm doing a health fair at Pride on Thompson Street between Washington Square South and West Street. Is ACT UP and Treatment Action Group. We have Mpox vaccines, we have COVID vaccines, we have Narcan to distribute, fentanyl testing, the whole bit. So what we call pregame your pride. So please stop by. It's in front of Judson Church.
Very good.
Great. So
when is that?
Pride, Sunday Pride. Sunday Pride is all day.
Oh, great. Okay,
We have
great.
the cure for HIV from the research department in Columbia as well.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, David. Bye, everybody.
Good night.
So Mother Stacy, please introduce yourself and introduce everything that we don't know about St. Luke in the Fields and your outreach.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be invited to share some information about St. Luke's outreach, past and present. I would welcome questions at the end. I've been rector at St. Luke in the Fields for 19 years now. We have a long history of serving the marginalized. And I actually have a little presentation, if I can make this work. So be patient, if I may.
Yes.
So just click on that.
All right.
Do I share the screen, or she can share her? Yeah, she can share her screen.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Woohoo! Okay, it worked. Tech is not my strong point, so that's always a relief. All right, so I'm just going to kind of talk through these slides. What you'll see is kind of an overview, snapshot of our history. I'll give some additional color, and then we'll do a little more of a drill down about stats for each of our current outreach programs that have been successfully operating, either in their present form or a slightly earlier iteration. And then I'm happy to take any questions. And by the way, we also at St. Luke in the Fields, if you're looking for places to host your CB2 meetings, we'd be happy to offer the only room that we have when school is in session, which is Lochlin Hall. We'd be happy to host you there. And so please, obviously free of charge, and we'd love to have you. So let us know if that's something that you're interested in doing.
Well, this is Mark Diller's lucky night. I'm just, never had it so good.
Sure. The reason that the wardens, for example, who are the head elected lay leaders of the church are not here is actually they're at a reception right now for a new partnership initiative with Holy Cross Monastery, which is an Episcopal order of men, religious monks, and they have a school in South Africa that we are wanting to partner with our school in terms of a new missional project. And this is just kind of exploring that. So we're very mission forward. And so we decided that they would go to the reception for the school in Grahamstown here on the block, and I would do this. So I'm flying solo tonight. So let's move forward. So this is really about building on the outreach that we've already been doing. And as was pointed out, a lot of people may not know what we've been up to for years and years. So I'm just going to give a quick overview. So St. Luke's was founded in 1822. Well, 1820, the community began to gather in a parishioner's living room, and then the buildings built 1822. The townhouses, which originally ringed the block, are from 1823, 1824, 1825. Is one of the earliest examples of city planning in New York, as you know. And ever since the beginning of St. Luke in the Fields, there's been a history of supporting the neighborhood and responding to the needs that emerge generation by generation. That's always been the case. For example, the parish house and annex, I'm sitting in the parish house now, in the annex, and the 487 Hudson and the Annex, Parish House Annex combo has been, over the years, a home for fallen women and indigent men. And the school itself was founded when St. Luke in the Field was a mission of Trinity Wall Street. It was founded in 1945 to educate the dock workers' children, households of modest means. It wasn't a great neighborhood. And so they said, let's found a school. And so 1945, the school was sort of scattered throughout various townhouses on the block, the rectory, the parish house, and nooks and crannies. And then in 1955, 10 years later, Trinity, being Trinity, just built a building free and clear, purpose-built. And when Trinity made St. Luke's independent, along with its other 11 of its 12 remaining chapels, all made independent in the 70s, St. Luke in the Fields inherited the school along with the rest of the block, with the landlord responsible for all of these historic properties, but mission to those who are marginalized and serving them.
I just want to ask, so is your land, was Trinity land?
Well, the way the Episcopal Church works is actually all of the church's property is not held in by the individual church, it's held by the diocese. You see, that's the governing unit. But yes, you are quite right that most of Lower Manhattan, as you know, was a land grant, most below 14th Street, from I think Queen Anne to Trinity Wall Street. And so, among other things, Trinity founded what is now Columbia, as King's College, early hospitals, parishes, and St. Luke's was among those, yes.
I think Rockefeller Center was Trinity. Anyway, whatever. I'm moving. But I digress. So go on.
Sure. So outreach is very important. In other words, this is embedded in our faith, as well as in the Hebrew scriptures from which Christianity grows. You know, there's one God, and love God, love your neighbor, and those two are intertwined. So outreach at St. Luke's. I mentioned that the school was founded to educate poor children. The parish house has been a home for fallen women and indigent men. The AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s. I was a seminarian in 1988 at Trinity Wall Street, and I was sent to St. Luke in the Fields to find out what St. Luke's was doing, because it was one of the few churches in the city that would bury people who died of HIV/AIDS. Wow. I think it was one of two. So funeral homes across the city would send people to St. Luke's for a burial if they died of AIDS, because nowhere else would do it. And they also, St. Luke in the Fields had a food pantry, a visitation program, and a hot dinner on Saturday nights for people living with HIV/AIDS. And so that was a very, very important and significant, within living memory, outreach ministry by St. Luke in the Fields to its own, really. Many parishioners are LGBTQ folks. Education equity, as you can see here, that would, the current manifestation of that is the Go Tutoring program on Saturday mornings in the school building. children.
Can you just repeat what that is? Because the transcript will not, just repeat what that word is. The what program on Saturday mornings?
It's GO, G-O, as in vroom vroom. Yes, the GO program. It's to help at-risk, educationally at-risk, disadvantaged kids with reading and math. And there's an academic year component on Saturday mornings during the academic year. Then in the summer, beginning actually this Monday, there's 5 weeks of all-day programming, including breakfast and lunch for these young people. And they're taught by professional teachers and supplemented by volunteers. And that's already happening on Saturday mornings, has been for years and years and years. Immigrant and migrant ministries, I was really interested to hear about the presentation by the CEO of the Door, or the executive director of the Door. We have a community closet, we call it, and it's a free pop-up clothing store on Saturday afternoons. And we're finding, obviously, with the influx of refugees to the city, that families, people of all ages are in need of basic clothing. So that's what this pop-up clothing closet is. And what you can see actually in this picture here, that's making the sandwiches for the GO program, I think, which is the Saturday morning program. But we also give non-perishable food items during community closet. So the GO program, the tutoring program, is on Saturday mornings, and then the community closet with the clothing is on Saturday afternoons. And the reason that we don't have them running synchronously is because we don't have enough space. So we have to run these things in series, because when the school's in session, we don't have space there. So we can use the school on weekends only. And so all our outreach programs basically happen on Saturdays. LGBTQ, we've sort of morphed as the executive director of God's Love We Deliver was saying, from serving people dying with AIDS, to trying to provide a sense of belonging for LGBTQ youth who are often marginally housed. So on Saturday evenings, after the community closet, we have the Art and Acceptance program, it's called, for young people, aged basically 18 to 25, 26. And they come for a hot meal, again, into the school dining room, the same space you're seeing there. And there are activities, some social services are provided. On occasion, we've had legal, pro bono counsel, testing, that kind of thing, health testing. It's really a way to bring these marginalized kids together, a sense of community and belonging. As I said, we have a hot meal, and then there's also a meal to go as well from that same gathering. There's dancing, it's kind of fun. Sometimes they've even had balls, you know, in some years. So it's intersectional, these programs. Obviously, there's some of these are overlapping populations in terms of migrants and LGBTQ. So that also is a Saturday program. So those really are the 3 signature outreach programs that have been established here. The community closet, that's supporting the immigrants' clothing needs, that's the newer program. But it's going gangbusters, supported by donations from all kinds of places, foundations, parishioners, corporations. We have many, many deliveries of socks from all kinds of places. And so we operate all of that in very constrained space. And then lastly, I just want to mention, we have some senior programming. We've got this sort of gathering, informal gathering called Tea at 3, which runs about once a month. But if we have more space, we'd like to offer that gathering opportunity for seniors more often.
I'm going to interrupt you just for one moment, just to be mindful of time. It's 20 of 8. I know you have a hard out at 8:30. I think we all do. And I know that there are some people here who have a bunch of questions for you. So I just wanted to give you that information so that you can pace yourself.
Okay, so we're just going to drill down on each of these programs. with some stats. So 30 years is how long we've been doing this GO project for at-risk, educationally at-risk kids. And you can see how many that we are serving just on the Saturdays that we can offer this program during the academic year. And then the weekdays, the summer program, full-time that I mentioned, that serves 100 participants a day. And that's what's just beginning again this coming Monday. The community closet, you can see a picture of that in our little Lachlan Hall space. Every week, we have to set up and tear down and store all of these clothing items. So that's a big issue. We used to have too many people coming, we couldn't handle it, so we had to cap it at 100 participants each Saturday. We were getting 200. LGBTQ community, I mentioned that, ministry during the AIDS era. The modern iteration of our service to LGBTQ community is the Art and Acceptance Program. Friends of Shelley is a gathering of trans women led by a parishioner who is a trans woman, and it's actually got an international participation. There's a woman, for example, who calls from Israel, which is not a safe space where she is in Israel in her cultural conservative setting to be a trans woman. And she says this is the group that saves her life.
Wow, this is incredible work.
This is the Tea at 3 that I mentioned, a gathering for seniors. I'm just sort of trying to give a little color on that. And there's a free weekly yoga class for older adults. So those are some of the things that we do. I also want to mention that we have hospitality for other groups too, many 12-step programs. We often have to turn away requests for additional 12-step programs. We have to turn away requests for programs for young children, free to be under 3 kind of program for moms and kids, music program, just because we have such a lack of space. We just have Lachlan Hall, this one space on our block. The parish hall burned down in 1981, along with the fire that gutted the interior of the church. The church was rebuilt. The parish hall wasn't, ran out of money. And the church cost 5 million to rebuild, which was a lot in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So the essence is that we are limited by our space from being able to expand our service to these populations. So the plan that we are exploring is to have a purpose-built 1-floor building on the corner of Christopher and Hudson, which would have secure exits onto Christopher Street and onto Hudson Street, secured behind in terms of the barrier between the edge of the new building and the school playground. So a secure site for these programs to these populations to be expanded during the week. Again, it's 1 floor and it's non-residential. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. is when we envision it being open. It's not going to be 24/7. And we are in that 1 floor, 6,000 odd square feet space. We are planning a large flexible gathering space for these programs to be assembled, dismantled, storage. We imagine the large gathering space to be able to be set up for sort of educational events like an auditorium with a screen, for banquet type events, and for things like the community closet, where there's a series of tables of different clothing items that guests can walk by. We also envision.
Sorry, Mother Stacy, 6,000 square feet. Is that sort of the size of the basement at Our Lady of Pompeii? Do you have any?
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's not your job to know.
And I'm just giving you a ballpark figure because this is actually this site and the use of this site potentially for a community building of some kind, both for our own needs to serve outwards and also to the extent that we're not using the space all the time for community groups to come in, such as 12-step groups and so on and so forth. This site on this corner has actually been in front of landmarks as part of the master plan of the block since 2013.
Oh my God.
So the truth is, we did not know when it might be possible for us to actually fulfill this dream of expanding our service to the children, to the elderly, to the marginalized. Because first of all, the school needed to expand, so we supported them in that, you know. So they've gone up 2 floors. We built on our former parking lot, has 20% affordable housing in that co-op building. The rest of the income is annuitized, and that's what funds our mission. We're not a wealthy congregation, and we have to take care of the whole block. It's our stewardship, it's our responsibility. Even though we don't own it, the diocese does, we're responsible for it. So funding all of that and these historic townhouses and looking after these 1820s townhouses properly takes money. So we had to do all these other pieces to be responsible stewards and allow the school to expand and thrive with a multi-generational lease after they became independent. So now we're finally, 10 years later, able to explore this, utilizing this site. We can't do everything we hoped to be able to do. Perhaps at one point, we can't do 3 floors. We can do 1 floor. And we've just sort of boiled it down to the essence of what we need. And we're going to start with the populations that we're already serving. Obviously, we're working with the school in this. We know they're concerned about security. We know they're concerned about construction site security, obviously, and programming. And that's why I've sort of gone into some detail about the populations we're currently serving and have been for many years, and that we would continue to serve. And I'm happy to take questions. I hope this is helpful. There will obviously be meetings with the school, constituency, sort of intra-church school on the block meetings this fall that will be convened by the appropriate school leadership. And I meet with the head of school every week, and we're looking forward to having that conversation with the school. I'm happy to take questions.
Great. Is this the end of your video presentation?
Yep, this is it.
So why don't you stop sharing your screen? And then we'll see who we have. So we're first going to take questions from members of the committee. And, okay. And then we'll move on to, there are a bunch of attendees here. So does anyone from the committee have a question? No. Okay.
I don't have a question, but I'm so impressed.
Yeah, I'm so impressed too with your work.
I am like I want to go visit. It's amazing. Thank you for all the work. I'm so
Oh, bless you. Thank you. We'd love to have you. Let me know when you're coming.
I will.
I think I'm just going to open it up directly to questions from the public. And if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. We have 15 attendees online, and we have 2 people in the room. So I'll bounce between them. The first hand I see is Annie Dean. I'll let you talk, and go ahead, Annie.
Hello. Thank you for hosting us this evening, and Mother Stacy, thank you for your great presentation. So I'm Annie Dean. I'm a mother of a child who is at St. Luke's School. I'm also the mother of a child with a rare disease and a set of special needs who is based at PS3. I also live in the neighborhood, so I'm somebody who am representing my views and concerns about this project, or I should say questions about this project, not just as a member of the St. Luke's Community School, but as a local member of the community and also a concerned parent at PS3 of a child who has special considerations and supports in the school environment. One of the things I really appreciated, Mother Stacy, was that you mentioned your long history of serving the marginalized. And I also just want to emphasize the long history that you shared about partnering with neighborhood families and the children who form much of the fabric of this community, who are deeply rooted to the school as their primary set of relationships. Our day-to-day experience and also our core identity is, part of the idea of coming into our school, feeling safe, feeling like we have a place where our children have a respite on both sides of the street. And there's no question that the mission of the church is an essential part of our community. I think everyone on this call is incredibly moved by the mission work and programs that you've been able to run and offer to the community, especially for such a long time. I think our concerns as parents is that we don't have specifics about this project and how it will be managed within the community. For instance, we want to talk about the impact of losing the playground at St. Luke's on our children. This is something that is deeply challenging, both in terms of a long-term construction project and also the growth and development of the children who attend this school. Many of us chose this school because of access to the playground. And you have to remember that these children are the children who were among the most disrupted during the pandemic. Their early childhood education years were completely disrupted, wearing masks in school. Being able to be outside is an essential part of what it means to be a child at St. Luke's. And we want to understand how we can meet the mission of the church while not having a negative impact on our children in this way if there is another option. We also want clarity on the portfolio of services that are being offered. What has been communicated has been very helpful, but is oftentimes contradictory. And that's because this is an early stage conversation, and we totally recognize that. For instance, there's been a lot of focus on the GO project. However, we also have learned that the GO project has been defunded by St. Luke's Church. Actually, the funding has shifted from the church to the capital improvement project of the building. This is a project, the GO project is something that uses the St. Luke's school grounds and that the parent community is quite impressed by and supportive of and would love to see continue in its current capacity, which it would be unable to do upon the removal of the playground. We also want to understand how the church will plan its construction project. As a real estate attorney, and by the way, I loved the overview of the land holdership from Trinity Church and its passage to St. Luke's, because as a real estate attorney in New York City, that's one of the most fun things that you learn about. And when I look at the capital budget that's been proposed of $11 million and the number of considerations there are to overcome here, both in terms of landmarks, the placement over the path train, the ability to manage a complex construction project in the context of the sensitive area of 2 elementary schools that are directly abutting this project. I worry that this could become an underfunded, languishing project that ends up being in a state of being unfinished for many years, that then becomes a challenge in the community that's difficult to resolve. And finally, I think we want to understand how the church will fund its portfolio of services. One thing that we understand from the services that are intended in this building and the hours of operation that have been suggested from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., which obviously is concurrent with the hours of operation of 2 adjacent elementary schools, is the idea that there would be a greater number of adults in need that are directly passing through this area. So I want to remind you that my son has a rare disease called Kabuki syndrome. He requires a one-to-one aide with him at all times in his day-to-day life at school. He plays outside during recess, largely unattended on Grove Street. And he does that in the presence of 1 security guard. My son is not somebody who would be able to safely exit an unsafe situation. And so, as a member of the PS3 community, it's very important to me that these issues of safety are addressed. We can go.
I'm just going to interrupt you just for 1 second. You're asking very important questions.
Yeah.
I just want to be mindful. There are about 14 people also at this meeting. I don't know how many of them will raise their hands. We normally give a time limit of 2 minutes, but it's a small meeting. But just try to wrap it up if you can.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeking answers to these questions in this meeting. What I would like to just add one last point, which is that we've been trying to engage Mother Stacy in a conversation through multiple different means. And we'd like to do so as community members, not as a St. Luke's parent community. And so we are respectfully requesting the opportunity to hold a dedicated meeting with the community board on this topic, where we can address these concerns and others as well. Thank you very much for your time, and I apologize for running over.
No, thank you. Thank you for your questions and your participation. Would anyone else like to ask a question? I made a whole big deal.
You can have my 2 minutes.
Yeah.
that was great. That's exactly what we were going to say.
Oh my God, Annie, I shouldn't have even, because no one else is raising their hand. Does any? Okay.
I think our concerns are fully expressed. If and we have a unified perspective that we'd like to have a separate meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So-
Susanna, is that something that we can, I guess,
Yeah, we can do
push
that,
the
absolutely.
meeting?
Yes, I think that the purpose of today's meeting was to be introduced to the work that St. Luke's does. It is news to me because, and I've lived here my whole life, but I'm just an ignoramus, but I'm very impressed by the work that you do. Obviously, we recognize that there is the church community, there is the school community, there is the surrounding community. There are a lot of communities that are part of this process. I think it would be appropriate. I mean, if Mother Stacy was willing to do it, I think it would be appropriate to have a meeting where we discussed your plans. But I recognize you have your own process, so that's a conversation that we can have in the coming months. What we wanted to do early on was just to at least start to broach the subject so that the community did not feel that it was in the dark. Our experience shows that when people don't know exactly what's going on because no one's told them, all kinds of things appear to be going on. So we wanted to nip that in the bud, which is to say that this is really just an introductory conversation. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted, as an addendum to what Annie said, and yes, she's a,
you know, identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Melanie Clark. I'm also a community member, and we happen to have children at St. Luke's School as well. I had a daughter who sang in the choir for 2 years at St. Luke's Church, which we would attend every Sunday. I wanted to just say that I believe I'm also speaking in a unified voice for Maria and everyone else on this call who's here for this purpose, to say that we do support the missions of the church. We support their expanding their outreach. We only oppose the location of this particular building. So we do not oppose what they're trying to do. We just oppose the location of the building, and that's why we would like to have a separate meeting to address that.
Okay. I think that that's a conversation that we should have after tonight. And I know that you answer to many different communities. You have the board of the church, you're in communication with the school. So you will have your own process. We will stay in touch and we'll determine when is the next way, you know, what the next step is. I'm just grateful that you've introduced us to all of this and that we are able to nip any rumors in the bud. I remember.
Would you like to respond, Mother Stacy?
I would. I just some sort of facts, if I may. This slew of concerns that are raised. I'll just obviously there's going to be conversation within the school context for the school community this fall, organized through Ms. Vidonchik and the school board, and that's all great. We are mindful of all of these concerns. We want to emphasize that the school is not going to lose all of the area that is currently being used by the school as the playground, and also that the church is offering other parts of the interior of the block, including a redesign opportunity for the school to consider other child-friendly landscaping sort of options for other pieces of the garden. So we're sort of juggling that with the pieces that we open up to the public, because we don't want to take that away from the public, but we want to open as much as possible to the school, because we want to do this in a neighborly and partnerish way, you know, as citizens of one block type thing. So that is being discussed. It's Ms. Vidonchik, Tracy Vidonchik, the head of school, has retained the services of a landscape architect, and that, you know, that process is underway. So we hope thereby to offset some of the loss of the outdoor space by opening up other outdoor space. And I also want to just say that the new building, you know, there's been rumors that it's going to be residential, that it's going to be a rehab clinic of some kind. Nope. We couldn't do that if we wanted to. It's such a has to be such a flexible space. We can't dedicate it to one particular program because it means other programs can't happen there. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. Other organizations do it better. So that will, none of that sort of thing will even be considered. Nor will say a home for the elderly. That was another thing that was floated at some point, but that was never really a serious possibility either. Same reasons, too many regulations, we can't do that. We give to Go the purpose-built space for them, which is invaluable. That's the hardest thing of all for them. They would say to find is purpose-built space. So we haven't defunded Go. We're still hosting Go. There are reallocations within our various mission activities and outreach activities to enable us to aggressively save and build our portfolio, to build this building and to run the building after it's built, to run the programs. We have a very wonderful development manager who raises from foundations and donors monies to support the programs that we currently run. And we would envision a similar model going forward. And also some programs that we host there will likely be simply looking for space, and we will give the space for a minimal donation or free. So in other words, what we'd be offering is the space. We wouldn't be offering the staffing for that. There would be security staffing. There would be staff oversight of the building and the programming. But it's not as though we're looking to hire, 6 social workers, for example, something like that. The construction team, the owner's rep that we're in the process, we've completed an interview process. They're very experienced. They know the block well. So they will be addressing all of these budget questions. Obviously, we're concerned about budget. No one in their right mind goes into a building project, especially in the West Village, without a concern about the budget. So our finance team is well on that, and we'll be getting cost estimates all the way through, though we appreciate the concern for that. And I think I'll just close by saying that the architects, BKSK, who did the early feasibility study on this, are well aware of the path piece, the security issues, the safety concerns, and will be very much paying attention to that and the security of the site, vis-a-vis particularly its adjacency to the school playground. And comments from the wider community when we did the rollout to the parish and school parents were there, those kinds of comments from folks were really taken on board in terms of security, secure egress, and will continue to be, and the design will be sensitive to those concerns. And it will go through iterations and improvements, and we're at the early stage yet.
I just realized that the people attending this meeting are well familiar with the geography that we're talking about, but maybe someone reading this report isn't. So I just wanted to clarify, the space where the building would be is currently mostly the schoolyard of the school. Is that right? It
is on the corner of Christopher and Hudson. In that corner that is currently used by the school as a playground. The playground was not part of the lease that we issued the school when they became independent in 2012. We have not charged them for the use of the playground because we knew that at some point it was conceivable that we may need to repurpose a portion of that. And we didn't know when that would be. So it's taken a while. And so that is where that is and why we are using that site. Yeah.
So purposes of clarity, you enter the church, it's a whole block campus. You enter the church from Hudson Street. You enter the school from Greenwich Street, right?
Also.
Oh, from Hudson, and you go through main entrance. But the building is mostly toward Greenwich, right? It's toward the Greenwich, right?
The school, yes.
School is, and then that side that is Christopher Street, that part of the campus is right now open space mostly. And what you're saying is that open space has been used by the school, but that the school became independent in, did you say
2012?
And so in that separation, actually that open space is not part of the school's lease. It's retained by the church.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to.
And the school, I mean, the church actually is, you know, the landlord of the whole block. And the school is a tenant, a most favored nation status tenant. By all means, you know, it's an Episcopal identity that we share, and service and inclusivity values and so forth. But it is the case that the school is on was a 49-year lease, and the building very specifically was leased to them. We supported the expansion of that. We carved out a shared space protocol, which had been in place since before independence, the dining room and so on and so forth, those spaces that we could use by default on weekends and after 6 p.m. and that the school would use by default during the workday. So the school day. So all of these protocols have been put in place, but yes, the playground was left out of it. We charged nothing for it. We said, please, you know, continue to use it with the understanding that at some point, it is possible that we will repurpose some or all of that.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to make sure that we had that on, you know, on the record of the meeting. What else? What else am I missing? Anything? No? Well, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Oh, Annie has another. Annie,
yeah, just one final question. I just wanted to understand whether or not a decision has been made to be able to host a separate meeting on this topic. I wasn't clear on that.
We don't have a date. I mean, if that's what you're asking. I mean, but we all seem interested in doing it. I'll say that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We don't have a date. All right. Yeah.
We can certainly have a conversation about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Have a lovely summer. Your kids are out of school, and happy Pride. We'll adjourn the meeting now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're going to have a business session. You're welcome to attend. We won't listen to you. And it's going to be very brief, I think.
I'm going to post my event for this weekend.
In the chat? Okay, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, but you should share that with the office too. I mean.
Yeah,
anyway,
I will. But, you know, back promoter.
I'm planning an e-blast for tomorrow, so if you can get it to me in the morning.
I saw the e-blast request. Yes, thank you.
So business session. I mean, we're not going to do a resolution. No, we're just going to do a report.
Yeah.
Okay, right?
Right. But I like that you're asking people for specific things for our budget request for the fall.
Oh, good. Glad.
I mean, that's very important.
Yeah, I was thinking also that when we have that meeting, when we talk about that in September, I think that we should, it should be a public meeting, and we should kind of make sure, I think we need to have a resolution.
Yes.
Because I realized we had a conversation recently about congestion pricing on the executive board, on the executive committee level. And this board early on did a resolution in support of the concept of congestion pricing, but has never had a resolution in support of the actual plan. So there's this letter going around the community boards, and we were asked to sign on to it, that excoriated the governor for causing congestion pricing. And there was a lively discussion about whether we had a position on this or not. So it occurs to me that when we go and advocate for these organizations and for the general landscape of this, we should probably do it as a resolution so that we can say that our board has an official position.
Yes, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. That will be stronger.
Okay, great. And then if someone asks us, how we feel about God's love, we can say this board passed a resolution in support of that. Cool. Anything else? Anything, Ivy? All right.
Show about my health fair. Anybody young, please come.
Where I'm sorry, but I live too close to Pride to spend the weekend here. I'm finding a way out of the.
I get it. I get it.
But it's insane.
So
there's a lot to be said about people with experience, and we're going to hear it tonight on the debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So So you're gonna, I guess we're gonna work on setting a space and time with the church and with the parents to have like a specific talk.
Yes, we're going to, I mean, I'll stay in touch with Mother Stacy, you know, I
It
think
sounded
that,
like the head of school was gonna take the lead on that, right?
I don't know,
They can bring their people too, right? They can bring the architect or whatever.
Which would it go to? Would it go to our education committee or would it come to us?
No, it would come to us because it's about the human service center.
Yeah.
Okay.
There will be like business owners and other community members who also have concerns. It's not just St. Luke's parents. There's lots of.
Anyway, we will be, they have a process and I'm not going to start dictating their process, but we're going to stay in communication. I think everybody will likely agree that it benefits the process to have an open conversation, to have questions answered, to have concerns addressed, and all that kind of thing. So we'll figure out the right time for that. Okay. I'm going to guess it will be in the fall.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be.
Nobody's here in the summer.
Yeah, right. And also, like, we'll have to do, I mean, we have a meeting in July, but that's already booked. We're going to have Bridget Brennan from the Special Narcotics part of the DA's office come in July. We won't have a meeting in August. At the end of September, we'll likely want to talk about our budget priority requests because those are due sometime in October. So we'll go back to sort of normal scheduling in October, and which will probably be a good time to address this issue. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody to their living rooms.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for coming.